Have you ever really thought about how that thing you ordered from halfway across the world actually gets to your house? It's a piece of this giant, mind-bending puzzle called global shipping. Seriously, it's this massive, chaotic dance of ships, containers, and paperwork. Today, we're going to look at how Taiwan decided to tame that chaos by making its ports incredibly smart.
Right, that's the big question, isn't it? When a single container ship pulls into port, it kicks off this insane chain reaction. You've got dozens of different organizations, and each one has its own systems, its own rules, and its own mountain of paperwork. So how on earth do you coordinate all of that without everything just grinding to a halt? And believe me, this list barely scratches the surface. You've got the shipping lines, the port itself, customs, inspectors, trucking companies, warehouses, repair crews. Oh, and don't forget the banks and insurance companies. Every single one of them needs a piece of the pie, a bit of information, and the old way of doing things meant they all had to ask for it separately. Just imagine the mess.
So let's paint a picture of what before really looked like. It was a total logistical nightmare. I'm talking about people having to physically drive to different offices, filling out basically the same information over and over again on different paper forms. It was slow, it was super inefficient, and it created these huge bottlenecks. It was a system built for a paper world trying to survive in a digital age.
This quote right here, it just says it all. Think about that for a second. To decide which of these colossal ships gets to dock and when, people had to sit down together in a meeting. It's the perfect snapshot of how these old, manual ways of doing things were just slowing down the entire engine of global trade. So, how did Taiwan even begin to untangle this mess? Well, they were smart about it. They didn't try to fix everything all at once. The first and most important step was for the Port Authority to get its own house in order. Before they could connect with everybody else, they had to build a rock-solid digital foundation for themselves.
And this whole transformation has a real official starting point. Back in 2014, the Taiwan International Ports Corporation kicked off its Smart Port Initiative. This was the moment they drew a line in the sand and said, okay, we're done with paper and endless meetings. We're moving to data and algorithms.
They zeroed in on two main areas. First, what's called an ERP system, which is basically the digital brain for all the internal business stuff, HR, accounting, you name it. But the second part is the really crucial one. They built these dedicated smart port systems to manage the action on the ground. The container yards, the docks, the ships themselves. They cleaned up their own act first.
Okay, so getting your own operations digitized is huge, but it's only step one. The next massive hurdle was figuring out how to connect the port to that huge, sprawling web of outside partners. What they needed to build was a kind of digital nervous system that could let everyone talk to each other instantly. And that nervous system has a name, TradeVan. The best way to think of it is like a secure digital highway. It's the road where information can just flow instantly between all those key players: customs, shipping companies, banks, truckers. Everybody gets an on-ramp to this one central network.
And the solutions this highway provided were, frankly, game-changing. Suddenly, customs declarations were automated. Mountains of paper, like bills of lading, became simple e-documents. You could track your cargo in real time, and you could pay for all your duties and fees electronically. Each one of these functions was a direct knockout blow to one of the old system's biggest headaches. But even with a digitized port and a network connecting everyone, there was one last piece to the puzzle. The final boss, if you will, the ultimate upgrade, bringing all of these different digital systems together into one master platform. In the industry, they call this a single window. I mean, this right here tells the whole story. Before, you were stuck submitting the same forms over and over to a dozen different agencies. After, one application on one platform, and you get total service. It's not just an improvement, it's a complete revolution in how things get done. This system is officially called the CPT Single Window, and that acronym is pretty simple but really powerful. It stands for the three pillars of all this: customs, the port, and the trade community. And this wasn't just an idea they cooked up on their own. It's based on international standards from the World Customs Organization.
So what does that look like? Well, it's pretty simple. The three worlds of customs, port operations, and trade, they're not in their own little boxes anymore. They're now three totally integrated parts of one single seamless system. So after all that work, digitizing the port, building the network, creating this unified platform, what's the payoff? What does all this actually mean in the real world? Well, it all boils down to three huge, undeniable benefits.
First up, everything is simplified. No more filling out a million forms for a dozen agencies. You put your information in one time and that's it. You're done. Second, it's just faster. Way faster. Information flows automatically. Cargo that used to be stuck in clearance for days now gets through in a matter of hours. And that leads to the big one. It makes you more competitive. Because when you're simpler and you're faster, you have a massive advantage in the world of global trade. So let's just tie it all together. Simpler procedures mean you cut costs on manpower and admin work. Having total transparency lets you track everything, your cargo, your documents, your money, in real time. All of this shortens the timeline, which makes the entire supply chain more efficient and competitive. It's a win-win-win. This journey from total paper-based chaos to a single smart digital window is just incredible. It really shows how smart infrastructure can tame unbelievable complexity. And, it leaves us with one last question to chew on. Now that the port itself has been conquered, what's the next great frontier in global trade that technology is going to solve?